Hi everyone. Now that we're more than 18 months since the Chinook module was released into early access, I thought I would give you an overview of what we have so far and what's to come. At the end, I'll tell you what I would prioritise from that list, and yeah, I'd be interested to see what your priorities are too. So a reminder that all of this information is freely available on the internet. So, referring to WAGS's roadmap, linked in the description and what I'm showing you on the screen here, here is essentially what we have so far. This is what's marked in green on the list. So first of all, starting with the crew models, and in fact before I even get to that, when it comes to their list, they've obviously kind of picked out sort of certain items, right? Certain subsystems and things like that. You know, before this list, we have obviously got an aircraft which is, you know, flyable. Okay, it wasn't kind of that amazing when we first started off, but you know, it looks pretty good, right? And they've slowly kind of built stuff onto it. As to, you know, their kind of priorities and how they've divided it up, well, I'm sure they've got their reasons. But anyway, kind of back to the list. Starting with the crew models. So they talk about first person pilot and crew models. And I think they look pretty good. You know, there's a bit of finessing kind of here and there that they could certainly work on. I seem to remember, although I've not looked at it for a little while, but for example, like the gunners, I think when you kind of turn them, you move into like a third person kind of view. They kind of partly go into the model itself and what have you. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly something they can work on, but it's not really a priority for me, to be honest. And then the next thing on the list, so this is what we've already got. Additional paint schemes for several countries. We have got a reasonable amount. I mean, obviously some of the aircraft that have been in DCS like for ages, like F-18 and what have you, have got tons and tons of like specific, you know, squadron paint schemes and things like that. I think the core ones are pretty good, but what I'm showing you in the background, the ones that have come from the user base are brilliant. You've probably seen in my videos, you know, I like the 27 Squadron one, the Swedish kind of Splinter style and what have you. I like some of the, you know, the firefighting Columbia helicopters type ones from the States and things like that. They look pretty cool as well, and obviously that side of the house is you know, improving more as day goes on, or time goes on, should I say, not the particular day. Anyway, next one, so improvements to the Advanced Flight Control System AFCS, including automatic turn coordination. So yeah, you know, the AFCS functionality it's certainly moved on since those kind of early days, especially, you know, thinking back to the videos that I created and how, yeah, there was this kind of realization that, okay, we have got Bob, and Bob can come in and sort of, you know, save the day and what have you. But obviously over time, and in fact where we are now, we're in a situation where, you know, do you really need kind of Bob? I don't know, maybe if you're going like AFK for a little bit, you might want to risk it, but yeah, so it's certainly, you know, the early flight model was yeah, an interesting beast. Next one, so addition of the Digital Advanced Flight Control System AFCS core functions that include automatic turn coordination, well I mentioned that in the previous one, airspeed hold and pitch attitude stability and LCT. Yeah, so similar to what I've just been saying, you know, the aircraft nowadays is far more stable than what we had at the outset. That's for sure. Next one, longitudinal cyclic trim actuators, so LCCAs, That adjusts rotor tilt automatically, allowing the fuselage to be level even at high speeds. So this is one of the many things I picked up in the early versions, and yeah, again, I did make another video for it. That for example, during the cruise, the cabin was tilted significantly forwards, right? Because essentially it's the model was because it's it was as if the LCTAs kind of didn't exist. Those have obviously been applied now, and yeah, when you're sorting around, you can see that the cabin is nice and sort of horizontal in the cruise where it should be. And yeah, certainly handles more like the real thing. Next thing then, and this is the last on the list of essentially the stuff that we've already got, right? So differential airspeed holds the dash, which allows a more natural cyclic position as the airspeed increases. It's actually got it as kind of work in progress. I don't know. I've not really kind of noticed a problem with it so much now. I think certainly initially when we started off, your cyclic could be kind of all over the place, and with the the dash functionality kind of doing its thing. Certainly when you fly it again, cruise, that kind of thing, you'll notice that your joystick, essentially your cyclic is in a far more like natural sort of position, right? You're not having to hold the thing kind of all the way forward to kind of go somewhere, right? And then we move on to the items which have been marked as in development, right? So in terms of what they've what they've done on their list, that's what's that, 1 2 3 4 5 6 things, right? So on the next part, which is the blue items on the list. So first one, so addition of the digital advanced flight control system. So yes, DAFX native functions that include inertial and radar altimeter holds for velocity, position hold, etc. So as you probably know, we've got some of the altitude hold functionality, which is a really great addition, and it makes the aircraft much easier to fly. For example, when you're coming into land in a tight area, if you're maneuvering over a load that you're going to be picking up, there is this is something that I pointed out in my last kind of video, because I appreciate there's a lot of people out there that are familiar with the aircraft, but for those that aren't familiar with the aircraft, you need to know that the altitude hold, it's a great, it's great when it works, but you also need to ensure you turn it off when you're outside of that kind of maneuvering, because if you keep it on, as you saw in the last kind of video, then it will try and suppress what you're doing, because the system's thinking, hang on a minute, you want to go and hover somewhere or land or something like that. So it's no good really in its current state for low level, that kind of stuff really. And then of course there's what we're missing from the position side of the house. In the recent updates, they actually removed the position annunciator, right? The little kind of indication that appeared on the MFD, that disappeared, which I kind of suggested in my last video that one of the reasons for that is maybe because they're kind of got something wasting in the wings. But yeah, I mean, when position mode comes along, being able to hold over a specific point, whether it's fixed, for example, like a building, or like a moving target like a ship, where it could follow the deck of a ship that's transiting along, and I don't know, again, dropping loads off and that sort of stuff, or in the future fast roping troops onto it and that kind of stuff, which would be pretty good. Now you can obviously do this now manually, right? You can go on the server, find a ship, especially like multiplayer. You find, like for example, on the aerobatic server, sometimes you'll find a load of helicopters kind of flying between the legs of the oil rig or chasing the deck of the ship around and that kind of stuff. And you can definitely do it now manually, but yeah, position mode, oh, it's just going to make this kind of stuff really, really easy, right? Okay, next one then is the engine air particle separator, so the EAPS system. So these are units which filter out particulates such as grit and sand from going into the engines. They also use them in sort of Arctic kind of snow conditions as well. I mean, yeah, beyond the cosmetic, how they look. I don't know about this one, why it's kind of so high on the list. I didn't look to see like if a list was kind of alphabetical or something like that, but in fact, looking at it, it's not. But we don't really get kind of brownouts and that sort of stuff. And yeah, I think it'll certainly make the aircraft kind of look good. They there is the system kind of functionality that built into it as well. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, is it kind of something to necessarily have kind of far up the list? I don't think so. And unless it's as I say, like a simple kind of graphical sort of change or something like that. I'll kind of show you a couple of examples on the Microsoft Flight Sim version, the 2024. So I've got the Meltec kind of Chinook, and that one, you can select all sorts of roll equipment, right? So you can select things like you can have the EAPS units, you can have skis on it, all different cargo and all that sort of stuff as well. And yeah, it looks nice. Probably a little bit of a surprise that it didn't kind of come out initially, but there you are. Next one. So complete main MFD pages and subpages where suitable for the simulation. So what I've observed is that most of the updates that we've had have included updates to the MFD pages, enabling all sorts of functionality from direct visual feedback as to what the aircraft and systems are doing, warning, caution, obviously your PFD map, etc. Covering all sorts of navigation, fuel, hydraulic, transmission, monitoring systems, from temperatures, pressures, all sorts of stuff. And we certainly have enough to get by with at the moment. And as I say, it does depend how far down the rabbit hole they want to go. I mean, certainly for those that are looking for like the full kind of legit kind of simulation, and I imagine you want to see as many kind of the pages and options and that kind of stuff as possible. I mean, for the moment, certainly now that they've kind of added things like the polar display for hovering and trend meter and all that kind of stuff, I think it's pretty good what we've got. But certainly, there's a lot of stuff that they can add in the future. The next one then, so I'll actually deal with the next kind of two together. So this is talking about the multi-crew gunner positions and the additional gunner weapon options as well. So the addition of the M60 and the M240H machine guns was certainly a welcome addition and gives a Chinook the ability to defend itself, right? Although it's not perfect. The ramp gunner position for me is too low. The AI gunners, which I use 99% of the time, sometimes they don't always fire. There are some people which have suggested on the forums or Discord, that kind of stuff, that they are a bit kind of OP, and I have kind of seen it. Certainly there's one server that I know of that, because of the whole kind of Chinook indestructibility side of the house, that they've just basically banned the Chinook from having any kind of crew mounted weapons, which is a bit disappointing, because it means that if you're flying around in Chinook, you're basically kind of humping and dumping kind of stuff backwards and forwards. But yeah, I think that's kind of tied into the whole damage model sort of side of the house. But yeah, I mean, as I say, it's development. So what's hopefully waiting in the wings is a M134 minigun for the left and right, like port and starboard. On the back, you're always going to have, you know, M240 or M60 or something like that. But yeah, couple of miniguns on Chinook, and yeah, this will be a bit of a beast for sure. Next one then. So this talks about more interactive training missions. Now, I've not really done many of these, to be honest, because I was kind of familiar with the aircraft, and I like to sort of find out a lot of stuff myself. I do understand the need for these, especially those that are, you know, kind of unfamiliar with the aircraft, and the options are still quite basic. However, you know, obviously does leave a gap for those of us in the community to create videos, you know, content and that sort of stuff to help out our kind of fellow players, which, yeah, I kind of enjoy doing, and hopefully you kind of enjoy watching or whatever as well. So, so yeah, there's that one. Next, this talks about more instant action and single player missions. Again, it kind of showing you what's available on the screen, although, you know, it does depend on what maps you've bought, right? If you've just got the basic kind of Caucasus one, and just trying to think the other kind of free one or whatever, that's fine. As you can see here, I've got a few maps. Yeah, getting them in the sales is probably my best advice for that one. But yeah, they do tend to be a bit of a mixed bag. As I say, it does depend on what maps you get, but again, it's something which needs some work. As I understand that, you know, there's, for whatever reason, you know, there's more players who want to play this kind of like single player campaign and that sort of stuff than multiplayer. For me, I'd love more, you know, more and more people to be playing multiplayer, but I get that people like to do their own stuff. That's totally fine. Next one, so the full manual. Now, the manual, again, show you up on screen here. The manual's not been updated since, what's it, 15th of July 2024. I think that's pretty much the first version of it. And yeah, you know, come on, AD, we need like an update to it, because you have been doing kind of a reasonable amount of work in the background. Then the next bit is what's still to come, as in what's still to come on their list. And yeah, I mean, it's like I said before, you know, they've kind of picked certain kind of systems and things like that, but I imagine along with it there's going to be a bunch of other kind of smaller stuff that's going to come along at the same time. And bearing in mind, this list was created in, what's that, 7th of September 2024. It's still quite a bit, right? I mean, I'm recording this today on the 6th of April 2026. It's the day that the Artemis 2 crew are going to be closest to the moon, which is pretty cool. Be watching out for that one later on. Anyway, first on their list then is the addition of the DAFIX flight director functions to provide MFD steering commands to the flight control computers, while coupled to those selected queues. And then there's a note at the bottom. It says, note, native and flight director build upon the core functions and are not independent. So this, yeah, I mean, this will certainly be useful for those trips where you can run a whole flight plan, load up the aircraft, let it do the majority of the A to B. Again, I suppose this depends on where you're flying and whether you want to do this. And yeah, whether you want to be flying the aircraft for the majority of the time. It's almost, yeah, I understand getting a realism is a bit of a, I don't know, almost like a Microsoft Flight Sim 2024 thing of kind of like, right, okay, let's get it up into the cruise and just podge the button and let it kind of do its thing. But yeah, I mean, I imagine if you're, I don't know, running a campaign or certainly multiplayer or something like that, I'm not sure necessarily that you're going to be kind of using this functionality and unless, yeah, you kind of put it in and then spending the whole rest of your time kind of with your eyes glued on the RWR and looking out the window for whatever's trying to shoot you down, right? Next bit then is a multi-point sling loading. And I think it's fair to say that the majority of people who bought Chinook were hoping to see this by now. Yes, we have a single hook option, but really, it's no difference except in cargo weight, I suppose, to things like Huey, Gazelle, MI8, things like that. We want to be able to pick up multiple loads with all of everything that entails, all of the maneuvering. For example, like three separate loads. You could be like picking up a gun, the crate of ammunition, and then a box of, I don't know, something else to kind of go with it. It could be 3 different loads that are going to 3 different locations, which again is something that in the real world is kind of quite common. Or larger loads that require the forward and aft hook. So, for example, vehicles, boats, ISO containers, all that kind of stuff. In fact, ISO use the center hook as well. And there's so much this kind of opens up, not just in terms of what's hanging underneath the aircraft, but also the handling of it, the failures, what you're going to do, where you're going to be, and all that sort of stuff. And I would have hoped to have seen this by now, and I think perhaps a lot of people as well. I imagine it's kind of one of those things that when they do eventually enable it, I can sort of see Chinook perhaps kind of rising back up in terms of popularity, and maybe a bunch of people who have kind of bought it and not really touched it are going to come back, especially some of the more kind of high profile streamers and things like that. I imagine are going to come back now that when should I say they can pick up multiple loads and do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd kind of hope that would be a bit higher on their list, to be honest, because of the aircraft that we're flying, right? Next two, I'll take the next two together. So this is talking about the flight engineer, sling load door and operation, and then the next one is look out from all non-cockpit doors by the flight engineer. Now for sling loading, there's actually a couple of places that the crew are going to be able to hang their heads out of. Normally like day to day, I suppose they could hang out the ramp, but I mean, how much are you going to see out of there? Probably very little. But normally you're talking about the front right hand door or the centre hatch. I think the US Army call the centre hatch like the hell hole or something like that. So I'm not entirely sure which ones they're kind of referring to there, but I'd imagine it is probably those. That said, I've walked around the cabin on VR, stuffed my head down as far as I can go into the centre hatch with Bob flying the aircraft and a load on the centre hook, and yeah, I mean that looks great. We were kind of flying over a forest or something like that at the time, and that looks really good. There's somebody I'll put a link to their video, but I kind of found it in the forums. There's somebody there. Apologies, I can't remember your name, but you made a really good video, and it was all basically to do with setting the aircraft up with Bob, and then being able to walk around like the flight engineer and kind of see all the positions and look at the cargo and stuff like that. And yeah, I thought it was a great video, and I'll share the link to it in the description. On the Windows kind of side of the house, you can, on the left hand side, so for the RF versions we refer to it as the port escape hatch, and yeah, on the American version you got like a handle so you can open and close it, you're not taking seals off and all that kind of stuff. So that could be somewhere where they could hang out of. Also towards the back of the aircraft, this is where you've got these two windows which are colloquially known as the bubble windows, right? So they actually enable the flight engineer, crewman, whatever, to stuff their head in there to be able to look down the side of the cab, maybe check the fuel tanks for damage or something like that if you've been shot at. But more, I suppose, day to day, so they can have a look up at the engines, especially if perhaps you've got an indication of a fire or something like that, and yeah, your flight engineer can kind of have a look and say, we are on fire, or maybe we're not, and there's some kind of indication problem, maybe. Next one on the list is the extended range fuel system. So it's calling this EAPS 2. So these are the ERTs, which are made by a company called Robertson. So in one sense, yeah, I mean, it's nice to have. It's going to add that additional amount of fuel. I mean, it depends. I suppose it depends which ones I talk about here. If I talk about the older ones, you're talking about a good kind of couple of tons of fuel, which is going to give you that endurance and things like that. But again, are you going to be using that necessarily in a game like that much, or campaign or something like that? Are you going to be using that much fuel? I don't know. But if they introduced it, and then they also kind of added the fare kit, which essentially is what enables your Chinook to turn into this forward armament and refueling points, then yeah, that would be really good. Now I know people have kind of popped scripts out there for it, and what was I reading the other day? I think there's been like user scripts and that sort of stuff, but now the aircraft is able to kind of deploy it as part of the, I think, one of the like CTLD functions or something like that. But this would be something that's kind of built into the aircraft, and something that you can deploy, not something that you're just picking out of a menu and things like that we've kind of got currently. But yeah, that would be pretty good. I spoke about this kind of ages ago. I think it was in my kind of what can Chinook do sort of video, and the fact you could load it up with ammunition and fuel, say to support a couple of Apaches, and then the three of you could go out, set up a FARP. They could go out, do their stuff, you could support them, then go back and things like that. That would be pretty cool. Next one talks about the fire extinguishers. Again, I think it's a little bit of a nice to have. Currently, yeah, they don't seem to do anything. What's supposed to happen when you pull the handles out is it's supposed to kill the fuel to the engine, whether you pulled out number 1 or number 2. And then when you turn the handles to like clockwise and anti-clockwise, depending on which handle you've pulled, then that should dump the suppressant into whichever engine bay you've set off. But yeah, at the moment, doesn't really seem to do anything. The The warning, as in the handle, doesn't light up. You don't get like this really annoying, and it's supposed to be kind of fire warning, audio warning in your headset either. So there is, a bit of stuff to do on that side. The engines do catch fire, as you can see on the damage model, but yeah, not much else is going on with that at the moment. And then the last one on my list is the AVS 7, so AVS 7 night vision goggles with the monocle with symbology. So for night flying, this would certainly be a great addition. And on VR in particular, the immersion, I think would be pretty incredible, with especially getting all of the symbology and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, big kind of thumbs up for this one, that they're looking at that one, which is good. So there you have it then. Here we are. It's April 2026, as I said before. There's still, lots of significant work for ED to do. There's also things that, like I said before, they're not on their list, such as internal cargo loads, troops. Actually some of the stuff that they've shown us in the videos, weirdly. So they've shown us like a Humvee sat in the back of one of the aircraft, but you can't do it, right? I mean, I tried to do it a little while ago. Yes, you can get a vehicle in the back. It's a bit messy, but as soon as you try and take off or whatever, it has to be something small like a Jeep or something like that. It just falls straight out, right? And as far as the troops, again, you can do the whole CTLD thing. You can pick them up, drop off, and that kind of stuff. But yeah, they're not in the back. And when I think back to the Miltech version, which is a Microsoft Flight Sim, you've been able to have kind of troops, cargo, boat, all sorts of stuff in the back of the Chinook for ages, right? But I guess it's maybe something that they're not just doing for Chinook, but also for the other sort of helicopters, and I don't know if it's enabled on the Herkia or not. But yeah, those kind of videos of the troops kind of running around and that kind of stuff did look really good. But yeah, it's kind of not on their list, right? So in terms of, what would I prioritise from this list? Well, without going through the entire kind of thing all over again, I'd prioritise like the top three are the ones for me, right? So first of all is the position mode, right? So this, once they enable this, flying around is going to be a breeze, right? Because then you've got your altitude hold option, you've got the position hold option, and then everything else when it comes to like lifting cargo up and trying your pinnacle landings and all that kind of stuff, working in close confined areas. You're going to find that kind of way easier. Next one, like the number 2 for me, is triple hook. As I said before, I think it would be a massive kind of upgrade for Chinook, and I think they enable that, and I imagine a lot of people are going to come back to Chinook, and for those people that have been sat on the fence kind of waiting for perhaps Chinook to have it, that's when they'll dive in and start doing it. Now, I imagine there are going to be some technicalities with it, but again, the Miltech Microsoft Flight Sim version, I mean, you could argue, okay, it looks, it's quite basic or whatever, but you can fly around at the moment with a Humvee underneath, or a Black Hawk, or UAV or something like that. You've been able to do that in that sim for the last kind of 18 months, 2 years, or something like that. And then the third one for me is miniguns. I mean, obviously, why not? But I think that'd be pretty cool, right? And yeah, I suppose going with that would be the damage model. I know I did a video about it before, but yeah, fixing the damage model, even in a basic sense. So, you know, the aircraft gets killed on the ground, you know, from something reasonable like a tank shell or something like that would be helpful. But again, yeah, it's not something on that list. But anyway, what yeah, what would you kind of put in your sort of top three? And yeah, I mean, what would you have expected to have been done by now, or is this perhaps some stuff that I've not kind of mentioned on here maybe? But let's see anyway. Anyway, thanks for watching. Enjoy. Bye bye.